I met Daniel when I was still learning who I was, young, uncertain, and naive. But from the start, I sensed something rare in him. He wasn't loud with his love. It was quiet, dependable, like the kind of safety you never realize you need until you have it. He was the kind of man who made the world feel gentler. We married early, moved into a tiny apartment that had more flaws than space, and began building a life stitched together with late-night talks, shared dreams, and simple joys. But slowly, almost invisibly, something in me began to drift. It wasn't a single moment or fight. It was a slow fade, a disconnect that crept in between the good mornings and the good nights. I started to feel small, like I was disappearing into the walls of our routine. I didn't speak up. I didn't reach out to Daniel. Instead, I looked for light elsewhere. I searched for attention, for eyes that lingered, for words that made me feel seen. That initial slip, a mistake I once thought I could control, turned into something uglier. For years, that's how long I let it go on. Not a secret love or grand affair, but a string of hollow encounters. Faces I forgot as quickly as they came, moments that meant nothing beyond the brief illusion of being wanted. I didn't love them. I barely even liked them. What I craved was a feeling they gave me, desired, alive, in control. I told myself lies to make it easier, that Daniel was too busy, that we had grown apart, that I deserved something more. But the truth was, I was the one who was lost. I abused the kindness of the one man who had never given me a reason to doubt him. I used his loyalty as a shield, so I wouldn't have to look at the mess I had become. I betrayed someone who had only ever loved me with sincerity and depth. When I finally confessed, long after it had ended, when I thought I had put it all behind me, Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't break anything or curse me out. He just sat there, still and quiet, like a man who had just watched the world vanish from under his feet. Then, without a single word, he walked into our bedroom, packed a bag, and left. The door closing behind him was the quietest sound I've ever heard, but it still echoes in my memory like a thunderclap. He disappeared. No texts, no calls, just silence. Months later, the only contact I received was a formal letter from a lawyer. He wanted the end of our marriage on paper. No conversation, no counseling, no second chances. Just distance. I tried everything. I wrote letters full of sorrow and honesty. I called. I emailed. I even contacted people close to him, desperate for a chance to explain, to apologize properly. But nothing came back. He had shut the door completely, and I couldn't blame him. I had broken something essential: trust, belief, love, and it wasn't the kind of wound that time could heal. I tried to rebuild myself from the ruins I had created. I found work, went to therapy, volunteered with women who had also lost parts of themselves along the way. I tried to live with purpose, with decency, hoping to make something good out of the mess I left behind. But beneath all that effort was a quiet, desperate wish that someday Daniel might see me again, that he'd notice the changes, that he'd realize I wasn't that careless, selfish girl anymore, that he might forgive me not to come back, but just enough to acknowledge that I was trying. Then one afternoon I saw him, of all places, in a bookstore. He was older, wiser. His face was sharper, more defined, shaped by years of distance and pain. But he looked at peace, grounded in a way he never had been before. I said his name, gently. He turned to me, polite, his expression unreadable. And then he said, "Do I know you?" Just like that, as if I was a stranger. Not the woman he had once vowed forever to. Not even a painful memory. Just nothing. I wasn't hoping for reconciliation or anything dramatic, but I didn't expect to be erased either. I stammered through something, words I had rehearsed 100 times. I told him I still loved him, that even though what I did was unforgivable, my feelings had been real. He listened without emotion, and then he said something I'll never forget. "You loved the way I made you feel. You didn't love me." And then he turned and walked away. That moment didn't shatter me in one sharp blow. It lingered. It pressed into me slowly, like a cold that never leaves your bones. I haven't seen him since. I still think about him. Often. Too often. Some nights, I dream of the way he used to laugh, or the way his hand would find mine without needing to look. And then I wake up alone, reminded of everything I lost, of everything I destroyed. I don't know if I ever really knew what love was back then. If I had, maybe I would have protected it instead of treating it like something disposable. Maybe I gave him all I had, but what I had was full of emptiness and shadow, and it was never enough. Now I live a quiet life. I work. I help others. I try to be better. But nothing changes the truth of what I did, the damage I caused, the man I broke. And the hardest part isn't the loneliness or the guilt. It's the fact that I no longer exist in his story. Not as a wife. Not as a mistake. Not even as a scar. Just gone. And maybe that's what I deserve. People always say time heals everything, but that's not true. Sometimes, time just gives your regret more space to grow. I carry mine with me, always, and every time I see a couple still in love after decades, I think of Daniel, of what we were supposed to be, and I ache, because I know he's out there living a life without me, and I'm here remembering a man who's already forgotten I ever existed.